can bring that directly into the drive as an analog input. It can respond that way. I said we put in the I/O, the versatile I/O capabilities, and I mentioned before how we can bring something in either as a normally open or normally closed signal, and we can configure it and make it work out. So we don't ask the customer, say, well, you're going to have to get a relay and send me over the contact in the other state. So we've eliminated that. And then these other things here are different markets, but they are things that we're looking at from a TECO standpoint, as make this drive pretty much standard. I mentioned before that like with the old drive, new drive, we do have pretty much the same parameter identification. So if you had the EQ5 and you're looking for, and you got familiar with some parameters, look at it on the EQ7 and they'll be in the same location. But also you see the similarities, the keypad as far as having the LED, the LCD, and a lot of the key functionalities are the same. The differences are that this one, first of all, it can store a little more in the way of diagnostics. There's some diagnostics menus, there's some monitoring menus. They put in more features here, more monitoring. There's a menu, there's a monitoring menu that will show you the output frequency, the output current, the output voltage. And that's great for starting something up and looking and making sure the motor's running right and doing things like that. If you happen to have a PID loop on this, you're trying to control tool pressure, there's a second screen another screen you can bring up that looks at your set point, looks at the feedback, and looks at the process output. So you can do your comparisons and analyze what the PID loop is doing. You have a variety of screens that are for diagnostics, so you can look at the state of the I/O and see it respond directly on that. You can look at any analog inputs and see them, and see what they're doing. So if you have a question about you're not getting a feedback signal over and the drive's not responding right, is it because the drive's not set up properly or because the signal's not coming in? And you can go to a screen and look at the signal coming across and see if you're getting any changes in responses. So those are the type of things. If you're running along and you get a fault on the drive trips out for whatever reason, it takes a snapshot right at the time of fault of the conditions it was operating at, so you can retrieve, let's say, what your commanded speed was, what you were actually running at, the amount of amps you were drawing at that time, the relative voltage levels, the I/O, and it will do this for the 4 most recent faults. So you have fault history data there, and you have something that you can look at pretty reliable to help you try to decipher, figure out what's wrong with the system.
Are your fault codes all covered in your literature, or?
Yes, they are.
In other words, some of them you get a fault code and it's whatever. It's a replace, drop, whatever.
Oh no, there are actually two things that there are fault codes in the literature, and there's like somewhere in the middle there's like a decision tree. Are you getting this? Did you check this? Did you check that? And that's one way. Also, this is a 5-line LCD screen, and if you get a fault, the bottom line is always like a scrolling bar. So like if you want to change a parameter, there's instructions that slide by that say like press the up or down key to adjust, or press enter, or same thing. If there's a fault or an alarm, it'll come across the scroll and say possible causes of that fault. Check this or look at this, that type of thing. So there's, as I said, it's a pretty informative little keypad here, and it comes standard with the drive. I know there are some cases that people will show you a drive with a picture of a keypad or some sort of interface on the front. When you actually order that part number, you only get the drive in a blank plate because you didn't specify which operator you want. We don't do that. This is all what I'm talking about here is standard out of the box. This is just in case you're out in the field and you wanted to identify the drive for somebody. This would give you an idea of what it is, what the ratings are. I mean, this is going to be in your manual here, but I thought it's kind of pretty simple. The EQ7 is always on there as the product family identifier. Then the voltage, and then the drive capacity and horsepower, and then the type of enclosure we have here. And this one is largely the protected chassis enclosure. I want to add that this is pretty much going to be the standard for any drive product we have as far as how we're going to designate them and do the nomenclature. So this is part of the commonality of TECO Westinghouse, how to identify our products. Oh, and the ratings are based on variable torque application, which in your case, you have a 200 horsepower fan, let's say, that you look at the drive that has a 200 horsepower rating. So that'll be a pretty easy relation to go with. Yeah, everything we build is, everything we have to 1,000 is standard. These units, even at the higher horsepower standard wall mounted units, they're not built to order. They're not drives, like some companies will take like a drive output and like up to the controller power board, and then they'll parallel output sections to achieve higher horsepower. We don't do that. It's just one integrated unit. So I just wanted to point that out too. If you have an application where you need to put the drive behind some sort of a protected enclosure, it's an NEMA 12 or a little more severe duty, a NEMA 3 outdoors, or even a NEMA 4 application. This is designed so that the heat sink can be mounted out the back of that cabinet. The important thing there is drives give off a lot of heat. The heat sink's going to take 70% of that and have that outside the unit. So this may save you having to put an air conditioner inside the cabinet, or if you do put one in, it'll minimize the size of it. So that could be an installation advantage and a cost advantage on there as well. This is standard, the way the drive's set up. It's got the mounting brackets. Those are removable. They can be back for wall mounting units, straight back, or they can be removed somewhere in the middle for like a flange mounting, so that you cut the hole and you put your heat sink out the back, and then you fasten it to the inside.
Is that is it weatherproof, the heat sink weatherproof?
The heat sink is a NEMA 1 rating, so
Okay.
it would be more like the front of the cabinet and the front part of it would be the thing there. But the heat sink doesn't really have a lot of live electronics. It just has the metal, and it'll have a fan going through there. So it may not be as critical if water gets back in there. I mean, yeah, if it's dirty and dusty, then the things and these things do plug. They may plug up if they're not periodically inspected and maintained. So I do have to give you that caution. We can actually do this at all ratings. We just don't, below 50 horsepower, we have these adapter plates that we would use rather than have something standard. You could actually, below 50 horsepower, one thing is you could have one enclosure with multiple drives in it. And so you might build one of those, and so you can have the heat sinks going out the back there to keep that multiple enclosure size down to a minimum. One of the other things they do is at a certain rating, and it's 100 horsepower and above, there's a DC link unit, and that's like to help harmonics, to help with the stabilization on the unit here. The important thing to note is we provide that 100 horsepower and above, but it's not already installed in the drive. It's a loose unit, and what this is showing, this is open carton, and that's the choke right there. So a provision has to be made for mounting that, but we do offer it, and well, we have it, and I needed to at least give you that detail. So if you have anything above 100 horsepower, then you do have to worry about the mounting of an extra piece of equipment. But once you get that in, that helps keep current down, that helps make for, that provides and contributes heavily to the stable operation. What size are you seeing typically? Can I get a feel now?
Up to 40, 50.
Okay. So you're not really likely to see this that much running
Not
into
100.
this. Okay. A couple of other things that we came out, in addition to having a drive that had more features and more capabilities than its predecessor, We also managed to provide it at a lower cost. So if you look at some of our older catalogs and use some comparisons on some of the ratings you're looking at, you're going to see about a 10 to 15